Well, hi there, everyone, and welcome to this special Thanksgiving edition of Thrive Thursday. I've got quite a lot to show you today, and I'm excited to share these recipes with you. When I was planning this video, I thought about doing a chicken and dressing, kind of course, like the main dish, but then one thing sort of led to another, and it kind of morphed into a 6-part video. 2 of them are updates from previous recipes that are already on my channel, and 4 of them are brand new, including the main dish, the chicken gravy, the cranberry sauce, and the grand finale, the apple crumble. All right, let's start with our chicken and dressing recipe. This is based on my grandmother's dressing recipe. So she always put a good amount of celery and onions in her dressing, and she always sauteed them in butter. And then she would do a lot of good chicken broth and milk and eggs. And she always seasoned with very traditional seasonings like poultry seasoning and sage, salt, and pepper. So those are the flavors that we're going to have in here. Of course, if you don't like sage or something like that, just don't add it. But you are going to need a couple of things to put in this dressing that you need to bake in advance. But don't worry, I will show you these things. This is the cornbread recipe based on a recipe that's already on my channel. And these are the hot roll recipe that I have on my channel. That was originally a YouTube short, so it's only 60 seconds. So I thought it deserved a little bit more time than that. It's a fantastic recipe. So ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts. You're in for a ride. For the chicken and dressing, I'm going to start with a quart-sized jar because this is going to give us at least 6 servings. You're going to start with 2 cups of chicken in the bottom of a quart-sized jar. And here are those traditional seasonings: chicken bouillon, poultry seasoning, sage. These are the things that my grandmother put in her dressing. And I loved being in the kitchen with her when I was growing up. When it was Thanksgiving and it was time for turkey and dressing, I was her official taste tester. So I loved that job. Enjoyed my time in the kitchen with my grandmother. All right, so here we go with some milk, instant milk, and then of course there's 2 different kinds of chopped onions. That might seem like a lot, but it's a good amount of dressing that we're making. Now, you do need to put your celery into a little baggie and kind of bruise it, or I hit it with a little rubber mallet actually. You need to break those celery pieces up into smaller bits. And you start with a cup of celery and then put that in a baggie and then go ahead and beat it up a little bit. The eggs that we're going to put in here, put them into a baggie and seal that up and put that in the top of your jar. We will rehydrate those, but we'll do that separately when we go to make the chicken and dressing. If you're going to store this, which is like a great thing to do, make this in advance and store it. You could put an oxygen absorber in there, and that is what you would put on your pantry shelf. It's really great to be able to make this in advance because you're not going to be overloaded with work on the day of if you've already made up all of these jars. All right, let me show you how to make the cornbread that's going to go into the chicken and dressing. I'm using a 1.5-pint size jar. If you don't have one of those, don't worry, you can use a quart size jar. You just might have a little bit of extra room at the top. This is the same recipe that I have up on my channel already, except for this. I decreased the amount of sugar. There's only 1 tablespoon of sugar that's going to go into this cornbread mix. My sweet corn muffin mix has 3 tablespoons of sugar because it's a sweet corn muffin mix. This is a little bit different. You do need to go ahead and bruise your sweet corn, just like you bruise that celery. The corn is wonderful, but it does not bake up well being the size that it is. So if you bruise it and break those kernels of corn, it will bake up beautifully in a cornbread. So that is what you store on your pantry shelf. I made my breads, both of them, the day before I made my chicken and dressing. And this is how I did it. I took that jar of mix, I put it into a bowl, and I stirred it really well because it's not stirred already. Okay, you need to combine all those ingredients. And then I think I started with a cup of water and then I added a little bit more water because I thought the batter was too thick. So just start with a cup, see what it looks like to you. If it seems a little thick, which mine did, I added another 1/4 cup of water. You want it to have, that's the consistency you want it to have. And it's gluten-free flour, so it needs to rest while your oven preheats. Okay, get that into a prepared pan and bake it up. On my corn muffin recipe, of course, I put them into a muffin tin. But for this, you can just bake it in a regular baking dish. And that's what it looks like when it comes out. Isn't that cute? I thought it looked like a smile. So I added macaroni eyes. It's happy cornbread. All right, let's move on to the hot roll mix. The recipe that I already have up on my channel is not for a meal in a jar or a side in a jar. It's just I was making rolls and I filmed it. But I watched a recipe from Jera over at Wicked Prepared, and she made a hot roll mix and she used the mayonnaise from the to-go packets at the drive-thru, and I thought that is brilliant. So thank you, Jera. You taught me that I could turn my recipe into a side in a jar recipe by using those little packets from the drive-thru. So this is my recipe and her idea for the mayonnaise packets. So you can either put them in a little baggie and store that next to your jar of bread ingredients, or you can store them in a jar next to your jar, or you could put all of it in a bigger jar and store it together. It's up to you. But when you go to make these hot rolls, you're going to love how simple this is. Once again, I am using Thrive Life gluten-free flour. That's the only thing I've ever made these with. I've only ever made my mayonnaise rolls with gluten-free flour. I think you could probably use regular all-purpose flour here. You might just decrease the liquid by a little bit, but I think it would work just fine. And now is time for the mayonnaise. So the mayonnaise in this works like the oil and the eggs would work in a regular roll recipe. Mayonnaise is basically made out of oil and eggs. So I think you need 7 or 8 packets of the mayo in there. And then you add 1 cup plus 2 tablespoons of water and mix that up. But this turns into a fantastic dough for the rolls. And it just takes a little bit of time to mix everything together. But again, with gluten-free flour, I wasn't really worried about over mixing because there's no gluten to develop. But once again, you do need to let your dough rest while you preheat your oven. Gluten-free dough needs to hydrate, actually. So let it rest and let it hydrate. And then you just put it into a prepared muffin tin. I sprayed mine with avocado oil spray, and then they're ready to bake up. And y'all, it's so easy. Isn't that easy? It's very simple. And I'm so excited to know that it can be done in a jar. All right, so I baked those, and when they come out of the oven, they're just beautiful. And like most things on my channel, I like to put a little butter on the top because butter makes things better. So the nice thing about doing these rolls is you not only can have rolls on your Thanksgiving dinner table, but you also use these rolls in the dressing mix. So you know how on regular dressing recipes you add bread and cornbread? Well, this serves as the bread that you add to the dressing. So I wanted y'all to see how wonderfully fluffy and pillowy soft these dinner rolls are. They are fantastic. In fact, I squeezed them here to show you just like how soft the middles are. Isn't that beautiful? When you have good gluten-free flour like Thrive Life has, you probably won't be able to tell the difference between this and just regular bread. It is a wonderful thing to have. So even after I ate that one roll, I still had 2 rolls to put in my dressing mix and 4 rolls for my dinner. So that was perfect. Now let's get back to prepping our chicken and dressing recipe. Now that we've made the cornbread and we've made the hot rolls, you'll just get a really big bowl here because it's going to make quite a bit of dressing. And if you're just cooking for a couple of people, you could still, definitely you could cut this recipe in half for sure. Or you could make the entire recipe, bake it up in 2 separate pans, and then freeze one of them, and you'll have your Christmas dinner already made. All right, into the mix here, you need to add hot water. Hot water is the only thing that's going to work here, and let me tell you why. You will want your chicken to be completely hydrated by the time you put it in the oven to bake it. And hot water hydrates our freeze-dried chicken a lot faster. So use hot tap water to hydrate that. And in a separate bowl, you'll put your eggs and add some water to that. Our scrambled egg mix is a beautiful mix. It mixes up really nicely, and this is equivalent to adding a couple of raw eggs to your dressing mixture. All right, so that's been sitting for a while, and I've stirred it a couple of times, and I tested the chicken actually, and it was soft. So it's ready to add my bread. So all you have to do, since I made this in advance, I made the breads the day before. They had sat in the refrigerator overnight, and it was very easy to crumble. They were not hot or anything like that. So I suggest making your breads the day before and then just having them ready. So all of this will not take too long if your breads are already ready. Okay, and now it's time for the hot rolls, or I call them hot rolls, the dinner rolls. They're not hot right now. They had been in the refrigerator. So I put 2 of my dinner rolls into the dressing mix. And I stirred everything up, and that's not enough water. You need more liquid in a dressing recipe. So I added 1 more cup of hot water. So that's a total of 5 cups of water that I've put in here so far. And then I thought, yeah, that's probably enough liquid. And I added my raw eggs and stirred that up. This is the cool part about using our eggs. You can taste for seasonings after you add them because they're pasteurized. You don't have to worry about consuming raw eggs. So I added a little bit of salt and pepper, and you can see there I had 1 extra roll that I didn't add, and I had about a roll-sized amount of cornbread that I didn't put in there. You can put as much bread as you want, but I put 2 rolls and then most of the cornbread. Now, like I said, my grandma always sauteed her veggies in butter, and that butter always went into the dressing mix. So you need to add some butter. And if you've watched my channel much, you know that's not unusual for me to say add butter. The butter adds a lot of richness and the fat that you need in this recipe. So please add some melted butter if you have it. Now, this is what I was talking about you could do. This is a large amount of dressing, isn't it? It's a good amount of dressing. This is probably going to serve at least 6 people, okay? But what you could do is you could divide that in half, put that in 2 different baking dishes, bake it up. You might bake it a little bit less time, but you could go ahead and bake it up and then just have a second one that you would put in the freezer and have for a later meal. But this is what it looks like when it comes out of the oven. I baked mine for an hour and 15 minutes. About half of the time it was covered and about the other half it was uncovered. But isn't that lovely? You need to get it like a good medium brown. Don't take it out too early or else the middle won't be completely cooked. All right, let's move on. This is cranberry sauce, and y'all, it is so yummy. If you have our cranberries, then you can make homemade cranberry sauce using freeze-dried cranberries. You need to put them in the blender. This is an important step. Don't skip it. Blend those things. It doesn't really powder them, but it gets them smaller, so it makes a really nice cranberry sauce. So about half of a cup of our cranberries will give you about half of a cup of cranberry sauce. All right, and to that you're going to add some sugar and just a little bit of cornstarch to help it thicken up, and just a little pinch of salt. Just a tiny bit, but it needs it. All right, so how easy is that? That's super easy to put together, isn't it? You can put that on your shelf and it'll be waiting for you for whenever you're ready for it. And when you're ready to prepare it, you just need a small saucepan, and then you'll just empty the contents of the jar into the saucepan. Mine kind of stuck to the bottom because there's some natural sugars in the cranberries, though that's pretty normal. Don't worry if it sticks, just get a spoon and get it out. I added half a cup of water to that and just started whisking. Get your heat going and bring this to a boil. It's almost like making jam in a way, because that sugar will melt and then get kind of sticky. The cornstarch is going to thicken it up, and it's going to be ready in no time flat. I think I stirred for about 2 minutes while it boiled. And don't leave it alone, really. Just kind of stick with it here. Stay around. Don't walk off or anything. You need to stay close. But after 2 minutes, just take it off the heat and let it cool for a little bit. And this is what you'll have. See, it gets nice and thick. It's kind of like a jam. So there you go. There's our cranberry sauce. But the cranberries are so tart that this is definitely a cranberry sauce and not a jelly. It's not too sweet. It's wonderful. And after it's ready, just store that in the refrigerator. Okay, it's time for our chicken gravy mix. This is a great thing to have on your pantry shelf, because anytime you need a little bit of gravy, you do not have to go to the grocery store and get those jars of pre-made gravy that has who knows what in it. You can make your own mix, keep it on your pantry shelf, and just make a little bit at a time. It's perfect. Starting with some flour, add a little bit of salt and pepper, and then our chicken bouillon. And y'all, I mean, could that be any simpler? That's as easy as it gets. All you have to do is mix that up, put it in a jar, and store it on your pantry shelf. So there's our mix. Making the gravy couldn't be any easier either. Just get a small saucepan. I'm going to make a 1 cup serving of gravy here. Just start with some butter, of course. You could use oil. If you don't have butter, you could use oil, but I recommend the butter. And then just add a little bit of the gravy mix to the butter. And let me tell y'all, this is where a lot of people go wrong with their Thanksgiving gravy. They don't toast their flour long enough. You need to toast raw flour. If you don't, it tastes kind of pasty. So you need to toast it for a couple of minutes. It will start to smell nutty, like the scent changes, and you'll know when it's ready to add the liquid. If you wait and you toast it, then you'll have a delicious gravy. Now I added about a cup of water. And another thing people do wrong with gravy is they don't whisk constantly. You need to whisk. Don't walk away. Don't check your phone. Don't take pictures. Just whisk. And you will not have lumps. Nobody likes lumps in their gravy, okay? So this is how you make good gravy. It's very good and it's very simple and it doesn't take long at all. Just don't forget to whisk, okay? Cook that for about 2 minutes and that's it. Then it's done. It thickens up pretty quickly and you'll have gravy. So give it a taste, adjust the seasonings if you need to. But yeah, that's it. That's all there is to it. You can make a little bit or you can make a lot. Now I put this on our mashed potatoes. Thrive Life has instant mashed potatoes that come in a can. I did not do a video about that because it's just the potatoes out of the can. You just add them to some boiling water and that's it. You can add salt or milk or whatever you like to season it, but that's all. All right, it's time for our grand finale. Here is our apple crumble dessert in a jar. And y'all, this is one of those things that I didn't even think I would have time to film a dessert recipe. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought, you can't really do a Thanksgiving dinner without having dessert. So I just kind of made this recipe up. This is just what I thought should go into an apple crumble. I thought, yeah, a little pinch of this, a little bit of that. And oh my word, it turned out to be the tastiest apple crumble. I could not believe how good it was. Honestly, not to toot my own horn, but y'all, if you don't make any of the other recipes from this video, make the apple crumble. It's incredible. Now this is really cool. I used a different type of apple as a thickener instead of cornstarch. I learned that from an article I read like several years ago. The chef in that article used apples as his thickener, and he used freeze-dried apples that he had put in a blender. And I thought, oh my gosh, I could do that. I could use freeze-dried apples. I used our Fuji's and I put them in the blender, and that is going to act as our thickener. And I didn't have to put any cornstarch in there. So here's our crumble mixture. You will add butter to that when you prepare it. And so yeah, that is our apple crumble dessert in a jar. This is what you would store on your pantry shelf, and you could store that for a very long time. It doesn't last for a long time on my shelf, I'll tell you that, because my husband loved it as much as I did. And yeah, so we're going to be eating that up. My apples have natural sugars in them, even if they're the Granny Smith, so they stuck to the bottom. But anyway, I started with adding half a cup of water, but I added another half a cup later. So go ahead and add 1 cup of water to this recipe and get the heat going because you need to bring that to a boil. And while that is coming to a boil, get a bowl out and you can make your crumble topping. So that flour that you put in the baggie, we put flour, a couple kinds of sugar, cinnamon, a pinch of salt. Go ahead and mix that up. It needs to be mixed before you add the butter to it. And then I just added some melted butter and there you go. That's the crumble topping. And while I was doing that, this came to a boil. So that's perfect timing. You just give it a stir and you need to cook this mixture for 5 minutes. Just let it simmer for 5 minutes. And this is what it looks like after 5 minutes. It's fantastic. It tastes just like you had spent a lot of time and peeled and cored and chopped fresh apples. It tastes just like that at this point. And yeah, go ahead and taste it and you can thank me later because this is amazing. Now, if you put this in an oven-safe skillet, you can go ahead and just sprinkle your crumble topping right on that. And put it in the oven. If you don't have an oven safe skillet, just transfer that into a baking dish and put your crumble topping on there and go ahead and bake it. So just maybe 12, 13 minutes in the oven, and this is what I had. The crumble topping gets nice and toasty brown. It's so beautiful. That recipe gives you 2 servings of apple crumble. I just put a little bit of whipped cream on the top, and oh my word, it's just one of the best things I've ever put in my mouth. Where has this been? It is fantastic. I hope you try it. Now let's get back to plating up our chicken and dressing and getting this dinner on the table. Y'all, the chicken and dressing is so moist, it's so tender, and it is full of flavor. This reminded me spot on of my grandmother's recipe. It was fantastic. And here's that chicken gravy we made. Yeah, Thanksgiving dinner needs gravy, okay? So go ahead and make that gravy. You won't be sorry you did. And then here's that tart and slightly sweet cranberry sauce. I got it out of the refrigerator and it was perfect. So here you go. Here is our Thanksgiving dinner meal in a jar edition. How about that? Isn't it just lovely? I would be proud to serve that to guests on Thanksgiving. It's fantastic. Y'all, I was so pleased. I had so much fun doing this. I think these are a wonderful example of what is possible with freeze-dried food. You can make these in advance, and then your Thanksgiving will be relatively stress-free thanks to meals in jars, sides in jars, and dessert in a jar. Now is a great time to stock up on some of our Thrive Life ingredients because the Black Friday sale is about to start. It starts on Tuesday the 21st. Thrive Life is available in the USA and in Canada right now. If you click on my shopping link and you buy through my link, then we'll be connected. I'll be your consultant, you'll be my customer, and I will be glad to help you with any questions you have about the food. I will just leave you with my parting thoughts and say thanks so much for watching, and y'all have a happy, happy Thanksgiving.
Oh my. It's so good. Thank y'all for joining me on this rather long video journey. I hope you enjoyed it. I am so blessed. Family, friends, church, and now a YouTube family as well. So thank y'all so much. And I pray y'all have a blessed Thanksgiving. Until next time, y'all take care and keep thriving. Bye.